Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Keeping It Spiritually Simple. Hope everyone's doing well today. I have the pleasure and the honor of saying good morning, happy sunrise to Alobar Jones.
Top of the morning to you all.
And Alobar and I have been developing a relationship recently regarding a lot of his work. And I just had to have him on the show to discuss, first off, how he ever came into any of this and what exactly is he doing. So please step in and share with our viewers today, how did you come into this? And I'll let you name it because I have a lot of names for
okay.
it. And then how you actually develop, came into this, and then how it turned out that this is some of the work that you do.
Oh, yeah, I think in one word, it's just desperation. Desperation is what got me into this. And I don't know, I think it's at least 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And every single meditation I do still pays dividends. And like every time I do another meditation, there's still something fresh, which, is why 15 years is possible. If it wasn't a continuous exploration, I would have gotten way bored of it by now. But why did I get involved in spirituality? I will say that in my 20s, like I do remember I was competing for a girl with some guy who was talking about chakras and auras and stuff like that. I ended up shirt fronting him and saying, just stop with the BS, mate. Like nobody wants to hear it. Like you're full of it. Just go away. And because I never believed in any of this stuff. I wasn't raised with it. It's just nonsense, right? It's just hippie waffle. But there came a time when I needed it. I got involved in this stuff because I was I hate admitting this, but I was working for Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was working as secretary of the state board in Perth in West Australia. And we were doing some really good stuff there. And I was like 2 years sober or something like that, 2 or 3. And I was and the beautiful thing is, for my own personal healing journey, like I had to quit drinking like a fish, and and I did the 12 steps and they were good. And I had my first healing event. It wasn't a tradition, and then I did them again, and then I did them again 3 times in 1 year with diminishing returns. So they have this thing called step 4, which is a confession. And you do your confession, and then in step 5, you prepare your confession. You just figure out all the things that bother you inside that you feel bad about. And then step 5, you confess it to somebody. And that was my first real healing event, where I shared a lot of trauma, a lot of drama, where a lot of guilt, a lot of sadness, all of that stuff, it all just slowed away, And the confession took me a whole week to do. And I felt so good about it. I did it again and then again, and it felt, the first one gave me this much healing, the next one gave me that much healing, the next one gave me that much healing. What am I going to do here,
Mm-hmm.
And the 12 steps, 6 of them mention God or a higher power or something like that. And I went, okay, well, I better go out and get one of them. I better go and get a God. So I went to church, went to traditional church, and there was nothing there. I went to the happy clappy Christians, the new like Hillsong style people, and they were nice people. But I said to them, look, what's your program? I go, you got to find Jesus. I go, great. I want a mentor. I want prayer lessons. I want somebody to hold my hand through the whole process to make sure I find Jesus and that I know what he's talking about. And they just looked at me dumbfounded. The jaws just dropped, going, we've never heard anybody. Well, look, if this isn't your regular thing, if you don't know how to do this, I'm out of here. And then I went to Landmark, and that's just actually that's just a copy of the 12 steps. With some really great marketing on it, with some really lucrative marketing attached to it. And I went and hung out with the Buddhists, and the Buddhists had some good stuff, but they don't show you the good stuff until you know, they have some nice, the stillness meditations, the breath meditations, they're okay, but they don't teach you the good stuff till you put on the orange robe. And the hippies, they'll teach you the good stuff. Do all the freaky astral travel stuff. They just need money. And, you know, I was working, had a good job at that time. And, you know, it was, and money wasn't a question, you know, money wasn't an issue. So I did my first training in theta healing and I thought, oh, this is great. And so I did lots of that. Then I did my second one and my third one, and they were all really, really good. You know, and I worked the process that they trained me in really, really well. And like during the second or the third class, they showed everybody, we just did half an hour of parasite spirits. We'd scan the body and we'd see these parasite spirits on people. And you know, they said, so what, you know, and like we're listening to them, we're looking at them, we're talking about them. They're all nasty little buggers. And I asked the teacher, so how do we get rid of them? She goes, you know, we don't know. You know, we take them off for a couple of days and they come back and we don't know that. What do you mean we don't know? She goes, they go when they're ready, which is hippie waffle for we don't know what to do. Which I found to be a chronically unsatisfactory answer. But what was even worse was I would go to all these 12-step meetings and I would scan all the people in the crowd there, and all of them had half a dozen, like, like a minimum of 6. And that was kind of the qualification. I decided that was kind of the qualification for getting in there. It's not quite right, but it's going to make you crazy enough to need tons of drugs and drink to feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and I'd pull them away from people, and then I'd come back next week and they would have returned. And I went back to my teacher and go, what's the deal with this? And we don't know what to do. I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought about it. And I had one particularly nasty one on my solar plexus. And it took me 4 months to get rid of it. Like every night I'd lay down in bed and I'd put on the boxing gloves and I'd go out there and I'd fight it. And and after 4 months, I couldn't even tell you what I did right to get rid of the thing. But I couldn't tell you. I still don't know to this day what move I pulled that made it work. And yeah, and after that, like I just felt so much calm and so relaxed and so much release. And then about 3 days later, I go, oh, right. This is how normal people feel all the time. Right. Oh, wow. This is big. This is a big thing. All right. Like, because I would go to those 12-step meetings and I'd see so many people struggling against their demons, you know, day in, day out, week in, week out. You see the same people. And sometimes they've really got it covered and other times they are under the pump. And I looked at this and I go, like, this is the answer. Like, this is an important, very important part of the puzzle. Because, you know, when I was working as secretary of the board, like, I had access to all these guys who've been sober 10, 20 years, you know? So I kept inviting them all in and go, tell me what's not in the books. Tell me what treatment, tell me this, tell me something. And nobody seemed to know what we were fighting. You know, we knew how to fight. We knew how to fight it. And like what we came up with was the 12-step meetings are like an insulin. And if you get enough insulin, you're going to be steady. But if you don't get enough insulin, then you're not. And, you know, and I love the 12-step meetings, but the idea of being stuck with them forever, it just wasn't pretty. You know, and they saved my life. I will not underplay how important those things were. But yeah, I kept working, kept meditating every day, kept reprogramming. You know, like the theta healing is based around affirmation reprogramming. You know, reprogramming yourself one line at a time, one line at a time. You know, and it's funny because I was a bit unstable at that time, and I'd have to move houses every 2, 3, 4 months. You know, I'd move in somewhere and then I'd piss everybody off and I'd have to leave. And so the first thing that I started healing on, the first topic was about housing. You know, about having somewhere stable to live, having a nice place, living with people who I like and they like me, and everything's clean and it's tidy and there's no drama. And I did this whole slow of everything I thought about what housing was. And the next house I move into is like 2 minutes from the beach in Fremantle. It's like the best house I'd been in for ages. And with people who were very, very nice, and they both had jobs, and it was just so normal. It was great. And then, as it turns out, one of the guys owned a house and he sold it. And so I came home one day, there's this big for sale sign in the front yard. Oh, bugger, I'm moving again. But at least this time it's not my fault. I didn't do, you know. And then, you know, and he got called away to some deep sea dive. He fixes undersea oil pipelines. How will you do that? But it just means you go into one of those deep flotation tanks. What is they have a median flotation tank so you can dive really deep. And that was his job. So he disappeared for about a month when the house was selling, and the real estate agent came around and goes, "Oh my God, like, you know, you have to fix this and fix that and do this and do that, or otherwise it's a breach of contract." And he called up my mate and he go, $20,000 breach of contract, problem. The sale's not going to go through. And you know, my mate comes up from the top of from under the ocean and hears this and goes, "I've got to get back to Perth." And he gets back there, and I'd already fixed it all. I went and just, you know, it wasn't a big deal. It was like a day or two's work, and I just fixed all the things that needed fixing. And then we went out for coffee, and he goes, "Oh, that was you who fixed that? Oh, great. Look, why don't you just move into my other house? And I don't want you to pay rent. I just want you to be around just in case something goes wrong." And that's the thing that goes, this healing stuff is worth it. Because, like, you know, whereas I went from constant, as soon as I moved into a house, I'd already be sort of scanning for the next place I was moving into. Well, this is bullshit. This is not a way to live. And this turned it around, you know, and it passed the test. And I had more stability, and I had one less thing to worry about, and I could plan, and you know, it was really, really awesome. You know, and then I went on to develop this sort of parasite spirit stuff, which Eckhart Tolle calls pain bodies, you know, which is a nice avoiding of the whole of some buzzwords there. But you know, it is what it is. Yeah, so because I couldn't get the answers and I thought it was really, really important, I bought a one-way ticket to India, and I went on a spiritual quest. And you know, I did lots of stuff, but some of the key ones, some of the key ones was I saw an exorcism temple, which was wild, and I would sit there and I'd watch them pull this thing off one person, then it'd run across the temple and jump on someone else. And I thought, oh wow, this is an evergreen business, isn't it? Like they'll never go hungry. Yeah, but you know, they were doing stuff, you know, and they were getting somewhere with it. But I didn't train with them because I just knew that it was half of the story. And strangely enough, I was motorbiking around, and I stayed in a town called Rawalsa, which has a temple to one of Buddhism's early heroes. He's one of their ascended masters. He's a bodhisattva. We'd call him a saint if he was a Christian, right? And I went and prayed at his temple, and at night I went to sleep, and like my dreams would go, "Oh, this is how you get rid of them for good. And do this. Oh, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, do that. You wake up and go, okay, got it. Yep. Next. Okay, yep, got it. Next. Got it. Right. And then you know, and I wake up in the morning and go, oh, this dude who's been dead 2,500 years just told me how to do what I came here to do. I found it. Like the spiritual quest was resolved. And so I did, you know, and the next morning, I woke up in the morning and this other dude moves into the hotel space next to me, and I said, oh, I just had the most wild dream with this and that and the other. He goes, oh, yeah, because somebody was telling me that's my problem. I go, great, let's solve it. And it worked. And it worked a treat. It was awesome. And then, you know, then I went to Goa and I sat on the beach for a couple of months, and I just did this process over and over and over again. And it was awesome. It was really cool. And sort of got a really good handle on it. Yeah, and then came back here, and I knew that I didn't have all of the answers, and so I came back to Australia and I imported crystals from India and sold them and went up and down the coast. Yeah, and then I think I did like 30 different trainings, like weekend trainings or week-long trainings, and I ended up spending at least 50 grand on it, on my training. And then, because everybody says we have the whole picture, but they don't. You don't need to learn anything else because our spiritual system covers all issues, and that's not true. But they overlap a little bit sometimes. But at the end of the day, each one is useful and each one does something, but it's not necessarily the whole picture. So, like, you might learn, say, NLP or theta healing or Reiki or access consciousness or whatever, whichever ones you're into. And what you're actually learning here is, let's parallel it with auto mechanics, right? So some of them are really good at wheel assembly. Some of them are good with motors. Some of them teach you everything there is to know about the exhaust or the steering assembly or body work, how to panel beat or whatever it might be, right? But you want a bunch of them in order to really absorb the whole lot. That's so, like learning one, it's fascinating, but the real meat of it is when you learn. I really I did a yoga teacher training, and I figured out how yoga works during a Vipassana session. So I was like, when did a Vipassana, and it's sort of, and all of the pieces fell together. Oh, that's how yoga works. Now I get it. Yoga does this, exactly this, and like and I had revelation like that, like epiphany, I should say, over and over and over again. Because like you study system A and system B, and this is good, but when they cross-pollinate, it's the bits in between that is the pure gold, and it's what makes you excel as a healer. So I just kept doing more and more and more of them. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but each one builds on the other one. And also, as we know, as energy and spirit, as we get attracted to one thing, it propels us into another thing. But it sounds to me like you were on this path, and then a guide came in and showed you some of the missing components that were critical for this work that maybe other people didn't, that you're never going to find in the other courses, right? But
Basically,
they take you along and excel the other courses that you're in, which is what makes you unique at what you do.
yeah. Well, look, yeah, look, and everybody, it's the, I keep talking about the cross-pollination, and in my case, like, I think there's a few people around now who I didn't find back then, who might teach you how to do it, But look, I've got there's the spiritual milieu in general, is overly focused on positivity, and I call it positivity orthodoxy, because, and I think we can thank Jerry and Esther Hicks for that. Like, the law of attraction, and like they left a lot of stuff out, right? Like, because conversely, there's also a law of repulsion. But I dare you to sell a course on. I dare you to get someone to spend $5,000 to do a course on the law of repulsion. Right? I dare you. Like, so, and so it's like,
Oh, goodness.
It's like NLP. It's like any other mystic, hardcore mystic training, except they cut out all of the hippie sounding mumbo jumbo so that they can sell it to corporate. And so, you get these systems and they cut out half of the curriculum just because they think it might offend people. And they've been very, very successful. They're very, very marketable in that way. Like, to sell mysticism to corporates, NLP had to chop out everything about deities, everything, like so much. They chopped out so much out of those courses. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to teach energy healing when you can't use the word energy.
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
But NLP did it, and they made $1 billion out of it. Good on them.
Yeah, there's all these mini courses and super courses, and they range from $85 to $85,000. And
The sky's
it's
the limit.
insane. And but everybody wants to save a little bit. Hopefully, they can get part 2 and part 3 and part 4, get another $85,000 for it. But just to be clear, everybody, what Alabar is saying is he helps to remove the parasites
Oh,
and the imprints of the demons, because we all know what energy does. It's like the wind, and if you're not elevated in your own frequency, you're just a big magnet for all these things that occur. And you can do a lot of energy work to try to remove them, but 9 times out of 10, we fall back into old patterns and they stay stuck on us.
well, I will say this, like, I I don't bother just removing them. They must be exterminated. Like, these
Exactly.
demons have absolutely no use, purpose, or reason for existing. All they do is destroy other beings' free will. That's all they're about. That's all they do. And you know, what do I want to say? The spiritual milieu, or the spiritual community, just refuses to talk about negativity. There are people who will tell you that if you say something negative, you're trying to create it, and it's not. And it really abandons a large section of what the spiritual story is, And if you go back to all of the ancient texts, they're called demons in Christianity, they're called jinn or genies in Islam, in Hinduism they're called Butpret, in Judaism they're called Ouija, where we get the word Ouija board. The Chinese religions call them Mogwai, and the list goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And every single religion has a limited amount of book space. They're only, the books that they're passing down through the ages, the things that they want to say to their forebears, they don't have very much space. Like, it's not like nowadays where everybody can write 30,000 words on their home computer. It's not like that back then. It took a lot of training and resources to get stuff written down, and only the cleverest people would be allowed to say what was written down. And
Yes.
and all of them, for the longevity of their culture, the happiness of their progeny, all of them talk about demons, and they say, this is a real problem and you should get onto this. This is something important. All of them say that, and our current spiritual community just ignores it. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. And I'm upset, because I know, as one of the rare people who is an exorcist, right? Who's a professional exorcist, I'm about as good as you'll find. There's no, and I know what the results are. I know that if you clear not just your type 1 pain body Klingon attachments, there's 5 different types of 5 different ways that they penetrate into the human system. If you clear all of them, you are a fresh and shiny and new person. And it will literally be the same as doing 50 or 100 hours of professional healing, because the emotional dead weight, the emotional stones around your neck get released, and your frequency just becomes far more buoyant. You just naturally raise up, which comes with a whole bunch of luck. You solve your immediate problems, but you do get some more luxury problems after that. And it's a laugh. It's what everybody needs. I was actually doing an exorcism, and we interviewed a created demon that was there specifically as part of an advanced group for an invasion force by an alien species. This is a technology they totally understand, and this thing had been around for 350 years. And it was there specifically to implant its consciousness on the planet, so that we would invite in when the ship showed up, they'd have a foothold, they'd have a beachhead, so to speak, in human consciousness. Like, if we, this is part of losing the planet. We can lose the planet based on not having this technology. It's not acceptable. It's fucking not acceptable. I feel like a fish who's swimming against the flow of the river when I say, look, we should go back and listen to our forefathers, who might have been just as smart as us, if not smarter, and go, we should get onto this demon thing. It's kind of important. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I would have to agree with you 100%. I know that's what attracted me to your work because I understood it from a different energetic component. Um, and then I also understood it from those who have gone to people to have it, and then sure enough, it comes back, just like many other things. And that's why I think I use the word exterminator for you. You're like the demon exterminator. People can call it, demon fighter, whatever. There's a whole different, many different.
No,
Uh,
there's a few job titles flying around. Yeah.
yes, there are, and how bizarre, right? But I think what you do differently is you exterminate them so that they can't come back, right? They can't attach to anything or anyone else. You also go by helping the person understand what you doing here, what emotion are you creating, what's your most proudest moment for parasiting on this person, right? So you're bringing it into this point where now no, seriously, so that now someone in their left brain can begin to understand what you brought to this physical avatar that doesn't belong to me. That
Yeah.
here I thought it was my personality or my built-in this or that. And when it's gone, then you're like, shit.
Yeah. Like, my depression or my despair, and you listen to it, and like, for me, like that time I spent a week in bed with the bottle and I just wanted to crawl up under the doona and cry. Like that was its proudest moment. It was the happiest it's ever been, my demon.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, that's ugly. That's ugly, man. Like, and every time I interview one of those things, like it always tells a ridiculous, stupid story about how it manipulated the person into an emotion nobody would choose, into a situation nobody would choose. Like
Mm-hmm.
the sabotage is thick and rich and full, and it's pursued relentlessly, and it's I can't tell you how upset I am when I think about it. Like it's
Well, and you were talking about religion and things like that. And, we've always looked to religion for permission for so many things because that's how much they've infiltrated. And I used to think that, religion was in control of the masses for the God spell, so to speak. And then Spirit made it very clear to me that religions are basically they're used to control the devil in you, really. They're used to balance all of that. I mean,
yeah, no,
my
look,
spirit guides talk to me a lot and
yeah.
have all my life. It's hard sometimes to take what they show me and put it into words. Um, but we have to just take away from all of what we think we know and really dive into the energetics of what these parasites are doing. And some are a lot of them have been created specifically to destroy you.
Yeah, look, not it's not specifically to destroy you, but their existence, the only thing they can do is destroy you. Like these are beings who leak energy. They're broken and they're entropic. So if you leave them for
Mm-hmm.
long enough, they will just disintegrate. And the only way they continue to survive is if they get topped up with energy from someone else, i.e. you. Like,
You have to have a host. Yes.
yep. And they keep feeding and they feed and they get bigger and they get bigger. And then when they, like when you suck the bottle dry, you got the straw and you just hear that strange sound at the bottom of the thing. When it gets to that and you've got no more juice to give them, that's when they want you to suicide. Because
Mm-hmm.
like the story of all these sacrifice stories. They kill the fatted calf to bless the harvest or the wedding or the new venture or the battle or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And it's because when something dies, a whole bunch of energy is released. When that energy is released, that's when the demon has a feast, and they suck all of that up. And then because of the reincarnation cycle, it's like nothing happened for them, and they're born again into a
Mm-hmm.
fresh body.
Mm-hmm.
And so the human's death costs them nothing, and they actually get paid for it. I don't
Yeah.
lose it. It's and they will drink you dry if they're still around. But imagine what your life would be like if you weren't if you were fully able to focus your whole self on your dreams and desires, instead of being stuck in these emotional patterns or these stories that just keep repeating,
Mhm.
like the drama that keeps going on, with just a different cast of characters, but it's the same BS every time. Like,
Yeah.
imagine if you let go of all that, because it's the demons who are calling that drama in. They're
Yeah.
calling in those situation collapses, those fights, those yelling at each other, those emotional kickouts, those all of it, all the sabotage. You can thank them for it. And it's a little
Yeah. And
bit
I think
like,
that's what I, go
yeah.
ahead. No, no, go ahead, please.
So imagine that you're working on a project with somebody, right? And and you guys work on it, and it takes, say 20 hours to complete the project, the thing you want to do, like, a big garden, or building the fence with your next door neighbor, or something really simple like that, right? What these guys will do is they'll watch you both pour energy into it, right? So they both pour 10 hours of devotion into it. And then they see that energy there. They see that cluster of energy, and they go, oh, I want that. I want that. So what I have to do is I have to start a fight with my neighbor. And then when we're fighting, then the fence project will collapse, and I get to eat all of the time and effort that they put in. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
And like, and pick 100 situations where you've seen that, like,
Yeah.
where somebody
Yeah.
says they want something, and then halfway through it they just have an emotional kick out. Don't thank
Hmm.
anybody except the demons in them. And
Yeah. Well, I was thinking back to like when I was saying destroy you, what I meant is like they want to siphon so much of your life force from you that you can never live to the God potential that you were intended to have.
yeah,
So they're
totally.
like these little mini borders in front of you that don't let you go anywhere and do anything and have any excitement or joy. They siphon all of that life force from you.
Mm.
There's
Yeah, no,
nothing good about them, and they have no conscious to think anything else. They're just there to just devour and destroy. Is how I see it.
well, look, a lot of them are created. It's unusual for them to evolve naturally, although they can. Um, but when they're built, like, they're built lean, they're not built to do, they're only built for one task, and that's it. That's just the one thing that they do. And if you try to change them to do something else, they collapse and fall apart. Like, they're weak and pathetic. And, you see in the movies that demons are actually pretty scary, but once you get to know them, like, they're about as dangerous as a chihuahua, like, they're loud and they're noisy and they scream a lot, but really they're about the size of a football and just as easy to take care of, if you choose to do so. Not that I'm suggesting you
Mhm.
should do that to a chihuahua, but it's an analogy that I use a lot.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So with the removal of these, um, so let's say you remove all the ones that are there and apparent. So then what happens as that client is going about their life? Can others come and join in if your vibrations are not up? I mean, what can happen there? Or is it like once you've cleaned it out, there's the pesticide around that says, okay, no more.
Well, when I do it, I develop some shielding systems for that reason, um,
Mm,
to stop their friends showing up. In some cases, the person is so used to having them around, so like they identify with their depression, or they identify with their jealousy, or and they really internally they really what's the word, ally themselves with that particular thing. In those cases, sometimes they don't know how to live without them, and they'll call in, maybe not the same one, but one of their brothers. And it
mm,
happens. But let's these things travel in gangs. Sorry, so no, they don't. But in those situations, they do not come back. Like, you give 2 or 3 days, and those first 2 or 3 days are like a bit of a hangover, as your body purges out all of the garbage that they left behind in you. But after that, your mind is clearer than ever before. Your emotions are more buoyant than ever before, and everything's just easier and more relaxed, and the world's just a better place, and everything's going to be just fine after that.
Yeah, I mean, and I can testify to that because I've had a personal session with you. So I had, some little bobs and weaves and ups and downs for about a week. But since then, very subtly, but surprisingly, a lot of clarity, a lot of clarity, a lot of clearer messages, um, feeling more intact, like I feel more whole. Um, and a lot of the little squirmy things like nerve endings and things are not so irritated.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
no,
just feel more complete and more whole. So I mean, I can testify to what you just said.
yeah. I will quite often some like not big time medical issues, but some niggly little problems that have been around the body usually leave with them. Like they're usually
Mhm.
some. Like if you got a sore elbow and you pull these things off, then there's a decent chance that one of these guys is responsible for your sore elbow, and the sore elbow leaves when they do.
Mhm.
Like it's multifaceted, this, because it's anyway, like, because it's such, the work is so rare, that's why I specialize in it, because it's the most needful thing. Like
It
this.
is.
I mean, like I can talk about, turning your 13 chakras into a single super chakra, or expanding you into a 12-strand DNA consciousness, or this, or the, or the divine blessing of the great wazoo from Arcturia, or whatever it might be. I can do all of those things, but this is the thing that's most needful.
Oh, without question. And we have to share some awareness with people that this is occurring to everyone and anyone unbeknownst to yourself. So what could be an ache and a pain, or what you think is part of your personality, it could very well be one of these parasites. And I'm going to say it
Quite
is,
likely,
but
quite likely.
yeah,
Um,
quite likely. And you're
I'll
talking
put
about.
I'll put it, actually, the identification mark is when you're sitting at home one night and go, why do I do that? Or why did I
Mhm,
do that? Right? Why am I like this? How come I talk? How come I say those things? Right? If you ever had that conversation with yourself, bam, now you know why. Now you know
yeah,
exactly why.
yeah. Well, when you were just saying about, I could tell you, I could give you a superpower. I can combine all 12 of your chakras into this beautiful, like powerful, no one else can have it, blah, 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 blah. People would pay you to do that.
Totally,
But
totally. And there are other people who make
when
careers
they,
out of it.
right. But when you say, hey, I'm going to need to be, de-demonized. I'm going to need some
Some,
exorcism here. People will be like,
yeah,
well, you
no,
really should start with that. Honestly, you should start with that and then begin to see the superpowers that are there within you, that were being food and fuel for someone else, so you couldn't see it clearly.
yeah, look, you just, everything becomes easier and clearer, and like the sabotage patterns just fall away. The negative self-talk falls away. The belief that everything has to be difficult is quite often just a product of these guys. Like yeah, it's like you go from being poor to middle class, or from middle class to being upper middle class, or something like that. You just naturally drift into a different, better situation, because so many of your frequencies have just, so many of your low end frequencies have just been eliminated, that you're
Mm-hmm.
naturally just going to drift up in the world. Like I use the word more buoyant, because like it's unpredictable what the results are, but it's lovely, and I can't tell, people who fall into a new job or a new relationship or a new house or a new bunch of friends or something like that, just because they're in a better alignment for a better thing. It's like you get a bit of luck after this. Oh, that's what it feels like, but it's just the new
Mm-hmm.
version of the new normal, a new natural you. It's
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually 100% you. It's not anything else interfering. And it's kind of sad how this technology is so little shared or little known, it really disappoints me
Mm.
because it's really so important. And it's my dream one day that, you know, before people really discover addictions, addictions are a 100% correlation with demons. Like that's what causes it. That's what caused the obsession with those drugs or alcohol or whatever it might be. But, you know, like I think school kids should get tested for these things. School kids should be treated before they go through the, you know, painful and difficult rigmarole that being a drug addict causes for you and everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there is a way to junkie proof your kids. And, you know, and I think if parents actually understood and believed it, then why everyone would sign up for that. You know, it would, you know, it's my dream that schools will take this on one day. You know, this will be a part of how we look after our children properly.
Yeah, I think there has to be awareness before we can educate. You know, you can't just bring education in without having awareness to this, because this is such a taboo kind of subject. It really is.
Controversial is not even good, not a strong enough word for it. It's like
Well, everybody
we've
needs to
been,
get their appointment with, yeah.
yeah, we've been jamming this skeleton into the closet forever. What are you doing dragging it out?
Has to be drug out. It has to be drug out. I'm on a mission. I can't tell you the people that are coming to me now, and I'm like, I know who to send you to. I can only do so much on this end, but he's got the tools and skills that I don't have, and in collaboration we can get
We
people
can
into the
nail
spaces
this.
where they're, yeah.
Yeah, we can nail this. Yeah.
Well, I
So
have a lot of other questions, but I think with the way this particular time together has gone, I'm going to save that for
another day.
another day.
Yeah, no,
Another
it's
day.
cool. I think we said that all pretty well. I think you got to the point, you know, and made it clear.
Mhm.
I hope. I really hope.
Well, I think this was a pretty easygoing conversation, so there wasn't anything in here that would have too much of a shock collar on people. But for more information, alobarjones.com. And I'm going to really tell you, just check it out. You owe it
Yeah,
to
yeah.
yourself, and then you'll be surprised when you open that pathway up. You'll start going, oh, this person needs it, and this person needs it, and this person needs it. But where you got to start
How
is
do
the
you start
person
those conversations?
is
I
that
don't
I
know.
know, but it's the person in front of the mirror that needs to start first, because nobody's immune to it.
Well, look, it's difficult to believe that this might be me, but do yourself a favor and at least get checked. Call me up and I'll scan you over the phone. Like it's if you need it, I'll tell you straight up. If you don't, then that's okay too. But just get yourself. Yeah,
Fair enough.
if there's doubt, then like maybe you should seek a professional in the field. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's a big leap for people to say, look, maybe this is my problem, because it's ugly and nobody wants to bite down on that bullet.
Yeah. I think lose a demon, people. Just lose a demon.
Do
Nobody,
yourself a
nobody,
favor.
nobody. You're not losing the demon that makes you happy and lighthearted and one that laughs all the time and tells good jokes. Those demons are not demons. They're the healthy spiritual ones. You're losing the ones that are sucking all that from you, regardless.
You
All
got
right,
it.
everybody.
All right.
AlobarJones.com. Alabar, thank you so much for
Love
joining
to
me
you,
this
Sandra.
evening.
All right.
Okay. Bye,
Stay
everybody.
wonderful. Bye-bye.